Hey everybody, Rob here. What you're about to hear is a 2015 conversation that Kai and I had around the time that The Force Awakens entered theaters. So we did an episode before we saw the movie, and then we did a review right after the movie. So rather than have another discussion about a 4-year-old movie leading up to the Rise of Skywalker, I just figured it would make more sense to combine those two episodes and repost this. And so there will be some formatting differences. You will not hear the trailer audio breaking in here at a certain point. I may just drop it in the middle, but you won't hear, we won't follow the same format as we do now. So there will be some differences in that regard. But for the most part, this is what Kai and I have to say about The Force Awakens. And if you want to hear about The Last Jedi, I'll be posting that episode the exact same time I'm posting this combined version of The Force Awakens. So enjoy both those episodes, and may the Force be with you. Always.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yaniz Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob.
And this is Kai.
So we're recording this a few days before Star Wars The Force Awakens officially hits theaters. And I thought it would be prudent to, sit down and sort of reassess our expectations for the new film. And then, of course, we'll do a post-release review after the opening weekend to sort of reflect on our thoughts on the film. But, I wanted to get Kai in here to just kind of touch base on what are we thinking going into this? Because, like I said, I'm going to be posting this the day the film comes out nationwide. I don't know if it's worldwide at that same day or if it's sprinkling its international release out a little bit. But
that's just mean to other places, then, isn't it?
Well, sometimes other overseas territories get it first, actually.
Well, right. But I'm just saying that with Star Wars, that's mean to make the other countries wait for this movie.
Yeah.
If the U.S. is going to get it first, geez. Make everybody get it at the same time. Make it fair. Everybody's clearly dying to see this movie, so
let me ask you. First of all, it makes sense for me to start right from the beginning. So what are our connections? Is our experience with this franchise? So for me, I'm 32 and I didn't really even get into this franchise really until I was in high school with the special editions. So of all the purists who are like, oh, I want the original untampered with version of the movie, that's actually not the version that I really grew up with, because I really got involved in this world with the special editions, even though I some of the changes are questionable. Greedo shooting first. That's kind of the version of the movies that I really drew me in initially before the prequels. And since then, of course, my fandom has exploded hugely to the point that I have a Star Wars poster I'm staring at right now, a couple other Star Wars figurines and collectibles, my Blu-ray set sitting over there, a couple t-shirts in my collection. So it's probably the film franchise that I hold closest to me, with the only possible contender really being the Batman franchise, which I also have a poster of on my wall. So once I heard about Lucasfilm being purchased by Disney, I was instantly ecstatic. And the fact that everything I've heard about The Force Awakens going into it, from J.J. Abrams coming on board to, news that the original trilogy cast was going to be taking part in it, and John Williams coming back to score it, and all the marketing materials that have come out, I'm really excited and really hoping that this can redeem the franchise from the prequels. And then that's, I feel weird saying that, because I'm not one of those people that totally bashes the prequels and thinks they're totally devoid of any worth whatsoever and giant pieces of shit. I actually am a moderate defender of Attack of the Clones and kind of a staunch defender of Revenge of the Sith, minus 2 or 3 really awkward moments, usually involving Anakin and Padme. But yeah, so I sort of see the prequels and the original trilogy in a little bit of equal measure, and I love them all, even though Phantom Menace is admittedly not a good movie. It's sort of like the black sheep of the family that you're like, all right, you're invited to Thanksgiving, but keep your mess of a life to yourself while you're there. So that's where I'm coming from. So I'm all excited here and dragging Kai along with me on Friday night So what is, Kai, what is your connection to the franchise, and when did you first see the films, and what were your thoughts when you heard that they were making this?
Wow, that's a lot of stuff. But one question I wanted to ask you though is, so you really know about the movies, like you didn't really watch the movies till the special editions came out. Did you know a lot about Star Wars before then? Or was it just on like the periphery?
It was mostly on the periphery. I mean, neither of my parents are huge geeks into this kind of thing. I mean, they like Star Wars, all right, but it's never, they're not the type of people that like, saw it in theaters and was all about it, that kind of thing. So I didn't really, and I'm the older of the two kids in the house. So, my brother got into it probably around the same time I did. And he's the one that actually dressed as Darth Vader for Halloween and like had the toys and grew up more with the video games and that kind of stuff. And I had played some of the games, and I was of course familiar with Darth Vader and I'm your father and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't really remember seeing the movies and them making an impression until actually they announced the special editions. So I guess we're like late, I guess by this point we're probably mid to late 96. And my parents and I actually rented the VHS copies of the original versions, like all in a weekend, I think, and watched them all pretty much, or within a couple weeks of each other or something. I forget, but that was the first time I watched them. And I was like, oh wow, these are actually really good. And then I saw all three of the special editions. So yeah, I was a little bit of a late bloomer, I guess, when it comes to my Star Wars fandom.
But it's also both me and you. We weren't part of that time. I mean,
well, we were
when the
born,
last movie came out. Yeah. We were born.
We were like. Yeah, the Return of the Jedi was in theaters when we were born, actually. So
yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's accurate to say you were a late bloomer because it wasn't part of your.
Well, but I mean, as far as a lot of 30-somethings that grew up with it as being 7 years old and.
But maybe that's because of their parents, because that
maybe that, and that's why I qualified it with the fact that my family, Star Wars was not like a thing in our household. Until, until I saw it and then kind of made it a thing, I guess.
Right, exactly. So it's like, I was exposed to 80s films in the early 80s because of my parents.
I also didn't see any John Hughes movies until the last few years, except for Weird Science.
Yeah, so my parents and my, family friends had exposed me to early 80s movies, but I wouldn't have really known about them unless... And even you give me a hard time now, we're like, you've never seen them? I'm like, no, I've never seen that. I know that I was 4, but still. Anyway, I digress. So, no, that's an interesting point because that's how it was with me. I mean, my parents weren't really into Star Wars. I didn't even have a television, so I didn't spend a lot of my time watching TV.
So, did you grow up in Amish country or what?
No, my parents were hippies and didn't want us to have television.
Were they hippies to the point that they were anti-Star Wars? Like that's establishment. We're into like Easy Rider and shit like that.
No, well, what I was gonna say is that when I was younger, me and my sister used to play with Barbies, and we had Star Wars figurines in our Barbie kit, which I don't know where they came from. They must have come from my parents, or maybe our parents got them from somebody else. But we had like Star Wars figurines. So we had the
little small ones, like 3 or 4 inches tall.
Yeah, so we had Han Solo. And definitely Luke Skywalker. But I don't think we had Princess Leia or Darth Vader. I think it was really just Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
So was Barbie the Princess Leia of the group? It sounds like it.
No, they would be like, we had Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. We pretended that they were the kids because they were smaller than the Barbies.
Okay, that's good. Because I was imagining you could be like, oh, Han and Luke, that's the gay couple that lives next door to Barbie or something.
Well, being that young, I don't think I even knew... there were gay people,
right.
But no, they were like the kids of the Barbies because they were smaller. So we we played their Star Wars figurines, and I was just like you. I knew about Luke. I am your father.
Yeah, it was such a prominent thing in pop. I mean, it still is such a prominent thing in pop culture that it's like, how do you grow up not knowing Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and may the Force be with you and all that? Because the funny thing is, we both grew up actually with Spaceballs way more than Star Wars, which is strange.
See, and I think that's why. I thought for a long time that Spaceballs was very similar to Star Wars, but the genius of Mel Brooks is he doesn't do complete satire. Like, he does a satire, but he makes his own story.
Right.
Unlike a lot of the satirical movies now, they're kind of frame by frame.
Hey, well, they're talking about, like, date movie and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, hey, remember Paris Hilton? This is like Paris Hilton. She says that's hot, and then she goes away. Yeah,
Right.
that's ridiculous. No,
Yeah.
no, and it's funny. That's a good point about Spaceballs because I actually have, I have that on DVD as well. And on the commentary, he even talks about how some people just love the movie as just like a fairy tale type movie and not even really even paying attention to the Star Wars parody elements of it. Okay, so when did you first see the movies?
I first saw the movies when I was 13 years old.
Oh, so that's around the same time as me.
Before the special editions even were ever going to be released.
Right.
My mom's boyfriend at the time owned... Well, I guess my mom owned them. Had the 3 Star Wars movies on VHS. And my boyfriend was like, oh, these are such good movies. You should see them.
See, he knew what was up.
So, because he was the one that grew up on them. So I was watching them like, okay, it's all right. And I think by the 3rd one, I didn't even remember what happened. I did know about the Princess Leia and Jabba the Hutt scene.
Oh, the slave Leia thing?
Yeah, I already knew about that.
Did I tell you that...
And that's because of Friends, I think.
Did I tell you... Oh, right. Of course, naturally. Did I tell you that reportedly Disney is like squashing the whole slave Leia thing? Like they're going to remove all of that from like the licensed merchandise and that kind of stuff?
No.
Which I think makes sense. I mean, it's kind of degrading to women. I mean, in the context of the movie, I don't think it's a big deal because, she's captive and she rises up and she actually kills him. So in a way, it's sort of strangely empowering. Like she's degraded as like objectified in Jabba's palace and then rises up. It's like, screw you can't treat me this way, and strangles Jabba. Spoilers, I guess, but if you're going to see The Force Awakens and you haven't seen Return of the Jedi, you have a problem.
It's been 30 years, people.
Yeah, get on it. So yeah, they're actually doing that. So that's interesting.
All right, well, interesting. So it's going to be taken out of the movie?
Not out of the movie, but like they're not going to really be making toys that are like Slave Leia.
They were?
Oh yeah, there's figures of her in that outfit and like statues
well,
and all
I think
that
that's
kind of
good
stuff.
because if Star Wars is also going to be marketed to children,
Right. I wonder if
it's the same thing with Fat Bastard from
Kathleen Kennedy is like this big time producer in Hollywood. She's actually now the head of
Steven Spielberg's wife or something,
or worked with him on something. I don't know. She's actually head of Lucasfilm now, so I wonder if she had the fact that there's now a woman in charge, and maybe that's part of the reason she's like, first of all, no more slave Leia. The fuck is that? Secondly, did I show you? I think I did tell you about this. That I think Vulture.com, I hope I'm saying the right website, had the video of all the females speaking roles that weren't Leia in the original trilogy, and it was like 90 seconds.
Oh yeah, I think you told me.
There's basically, and it's like 80% Aunt Beru from the first movie being like Luke, and shit like that. Because there's essentially there's Leia, and then with maybe 2 small, Aunt Beru, and then there's Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi for like one scene. There's essentially no female presence in those movies whatsoever. Everybody's a dude. So I wonder if having
even alien dudes.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if having Kathleen Kennedy in place sort of helped balance that out a little. She's like, all right, well, we need to modernize this. And now you have Rey is in there, and you have John Boyega to put a little more diversity into it. So it's not all just white men anymore. And Felicity Jones is coming in as the lead in Rogue One. That's coming out next year. So they're creating a much more multi-dimensional world as far as like there's women, there's black guys, there's Asian people, blah blah.
But see,
which I think is good because it reflects in today's reality a little more closely.
But to the point though, wasn't it also showing diversity just by having an alien species represented? Because it had a lot of aliens in the movie,
I guess,
which were not considered aliens. They were considered, of that planet.
Right.
But they just look different than the.
Well, but they're not representing the diversity of our world.
That's exactly how I feel about Superman. I mean.
What do you mean? What about it?
Superman's still an alien. I don't think he represents people on this planet.
But they cast a white guy in it.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. So you think they should cast a black guy as Superman? Is that what you're saying?
They could do that too.
Mix it up?
I mean, but he's still being an alien.
Now that's not going to happen.
Being an alien.
That's not going to happen for another 10, 15 years until like reboot the DC, because now you got Henry Cavill in place.
Oh, they can do what they do with Spider-Man and just reboot it again after 5 years.
But I don't think that's... We're getting way off topic. I don't think that's DC's plan because they're doing this whole giant schedule of films. And anyway, back to Star Wars. So that's where you're coming from, is just having seen them as a kid and then not really seeing them much until we watched it recently, I guess, right?
Right, yeah. I saw Revenge of the Sith in the movie theater when it came out, and that was it. That was my only introduction to the prequel.
You hadn't seen the other 2 prequels?
No, but I heard they were horrible. At least I definitely heard the first one was horrible.
Okay.
And but I remember being 14 years old, and The Phantom Menace was coming out. And you have Natalie Portman and on the cover of YA magazine, her Star Wars gear, and I was like, oh yeah,
her crazy hair and her painted face. And,
and so then yes, I didn't see them really in their entirety and where I actually remember what happened in the original movies until we watched them recently.
Okay, so I mean, I think it's pretty clear to listeners that I love all the films, even Phantom Menace to a lesser extent, obviously. But 3, 4, and 5 are the ones I love the most. I actually like 3 a little bit more than 6. I know that's controversial. But as far as coming to the movies with relatively fresh eyes, what was your impression of the saga or each trilogy, and what was your favorite and least favorite of the 6?
Well, my impression of it was, I mean, they're definitely interesting. I don't, honestly, okay, this might sound blasphemous, and I know I had mentioned this to you while we were watching the movie, but watching the 4th one, or, the original one, I didn't really see what the big deal was. I felt a little bit more invested in Attack of the Clones than I did.
Attack of the Clones, this episode 2?
Yes. I felt more invested in that one because I just felt like, yes, obviously the name of the movie.
You might get some angry tweets over this.
I know the title of the film was Star Wars, but I just felt like there was so much on the battle, and me, I don't know, as a female, that just wasn't...
Oh, the Death Star battle at the end?
Yeah, I just felt like there was so much about that. And that was like the main plot point that just... It didn't really engage me.
Well, let me ask you this.
But the second one was... If
there were more battle scenes and there were more ladies in the X-Wings piloting the ships during the battle scene, similar to that, would you be more invested?
No.
So it's not that. It's
and I'm not saying that Attack of the Clones I like better than all the other original movies. I'm saying that because I'd seen it at the time. Okay. I'd only seen the 4th one. And I didn't see the 5th and the 6th one.
Right.
So because we watched them in consecutive order.
We watched them in chronological order. Which some people feel like you should go 4, 5, 6 and then flash back to 1, 2, 3, but I don't think that makes any sense.
You gave me the option.
I did. I was like, which way do you want to watch these? You're like, just to start from the beginning, get it over with. So was Phantom Menace your least favorite? Like I'm assuming it is.
That was terrible. Like Jar Jar Binks annoyed me from the get-go.
Fun fact, I actually did like Jar Jar when he first came out, and my first email address ever was jarjar1983@aol.com.
Wonder if it still works.
Probably not. I canceled it a long time ago. So maybe somebody else has it, but I don't think anybody has AOL accounts anymore like that they actively use. So episode 1's your least favorite?
Yes.
Was there anything about it you enjoyed? The lightsaber battles, at least, or
the lightsaber battles were good. I liked Qui-Gon Jinn. I liked him. Too bad that he didn't have a very long time in that movie.
Spoilers.
Yeah. And I liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Ewan McGregor. I liked that. Actually, he was a lot more interesting as Obi-Wan Kenobi than Alex Guinness was in...
Oh, really?
Well, because he died. Because
he was
died.
More vibrant?
Yeah, he died in the first movie, and then he's just a voice. That's not...
He's a ghost, though.
He's a ghost.
He comes back as a Force ghost. Come on. Okay, so what was of the 6, which one did you like the best? Like, how did the whole Anakin rise and fall and redemption story work for you, watching them in chronological order?
I think it worked for me. I mean, I'm going to say what a lot of people say, that I don't understand the midi-chlorides. Midi-chlorians? Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's like one of the most, other than Jar Jar, that's one of the most like maligned aspects of the prequels, where fans are just like, why did you do that? Because the whole point in the original, but the whole point in the original movie, is mysticism. And it's the idea that you're watching this movie, and if you believe in the Force and you train, you could become a Jedi too. But then Phantom Menace establishes, but you have to have these little things, these little organisms in your body that talk to your cells and tell you the will of the Force. Like, why overcomplicate that? Why can't you just let it be the spiritual thing that it is, instead of giving it a biological grounding it biologically? Which is why J.J. Abrams has come out and been like, we're not talking about midichlorians. And there's no Jar Jar in this. I'm like, thank God.
Whatever happened to Jar Jar anyway?
They faded him out. Actually, have you heard about the fan theory? Where some people are thinking, George Lucas has said that there were certain plans and things that he had mapped out for the prequel trilogy that kind of changed and got dropped as he went along. And so some fans are speculating, what if Jar Jar was actually supposed to be like an evil Sith mastermind.
What?
Who was pretending to be this idiot the whole time, because there's actually moments where, you know, he's talking to somebody and you see him like moving his hand a lot. So people are like, what if he's like manipulating things from behind the scene, that kind of thing. I mean, it all seems really far-fetched to me, but at the same time, that would have been kind of an awesome twist if he's just pretending to be like, oh, Mr. Jar Jar Binks. And then at the end, his voice changes and he's like actually working with Darth Sidious the whole time. Because remember, he's the one that is actually the one that is like, oh, I vote that we give emergency powers to the Chancellor so he can create this army. And the way it's all Jar Jar's fault. So that actually would have made sense if they would have done that in Revenge of the Sith. But I think even if that was the case, and I don't think it was, the fan backlash towards Jar Jar Binks was so strong that I think it was just like, yeah, okay, let's not do that.
Yeah, and though I didn't see the movie, I remember that too, where everyone was talking about Jar Jar. And I also remember people talking about how racist the Phantom Menace was.
Oh, well, how now that you've seen it.
Yeah.
The bad guys with their Asian accents, and then Watto being quasi-Jewish, like the cheap like dealer of parts and stuff.
I don't know, though,
whatever.
but I don't know if that was really intentional
I
on
don't
George
know if it was
Lucas's part.
either.
I mean, they're alien creatures. I mean, you're putting,
But you can see how some people get offended by it,
definitely.
at least, yeah.
That's why I'm like, okay, I can see why that this is the thought, but I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just they're building a character.
Right, and then drawing upon accents and dialects that exist within our world and implanting them within Star Wars to make it seem more diverse. Just like, oh, this planet's all, what do we have here? Rain. This planet's all snow, and this one's all lava and shit like that, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you see what you want to see. And we obviously live in a very politically correct
now even
culture
more
anyway.
So. Now it's just ridiculous. Anytime anybody says anything, it's blown out of proportion.
Yeah, like what
all over
voices was he supposed to use for those movies?
It's just I think the issue is more the way that they lined up with the characters themselves. Like Jar Jar is supposed to be like, oh, you saved my life. Kind of following him around, almost not a slave, but like he's indebted to the white man type of deal. You know what I mean? And then Watto being sort of like stingy and like, oh, no, that doesn't matter. Credits don't work out here. Only money and things like that. It's sort of like the Power Rangers thing. It's like, oh, the Asian one wears yellow and the black guy wears black. And things like that. You know what I mean? It's just the way it lines up.
That's what they call Power Rangers braces too.
Which they're changing for the new movie. I mean, they're mixing it up. So now there is a black guy and there's different ethnicities, but they don't fall like in that way anymore.
So what nationality, ethnicity is the Pink Ranger then?
It's a woman, but it's still a woman, but I don't even know if it's a white girl. I don't even know. I forget now.
What do you mean it's from
but the black guy is a Blue Ranger now. Like they're switching it up. It's actually the guy from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which I recently watched. So yeah, but so what's your favorite of the 6 then?
I did like the third one, Revenge of the Sith. I did like that, and there were some parts of Attack of the Clones I thought was nice. Like I liked them in Naboo. It was very visually beautiful, and definitely the prequels did really well with the set design and the visuals. I mean, there was a lot of CGI in them, but like Naboo was really beautiful, and how when they went to Mordor.
Mordor's Lord of the Rings.
They did it again?
Mustafar.
I
could see how you could get that confused a little.
Mustafar. Sorry, listeners. That was very,
visually whatever, intense and stuff.
Yeah. So that was really neat. But
I do think all the CG has not helped the movie's age particularly well. Because if you look at Phantom Menace now, you're like, wow, this doesn't look very good.
I remember us watching the films recently, and I'm like, wow, this looks like a computer game.
Basically.
It's just too much CGI.
Which is why J.J. Abrams, with The Force Awakens, is leaning towards more of a balance between practical effects and CG, which hopefully can avoid that. Because the original movies, most of that, they didn't really tamper with, just cleaned it up and removed some like matte lines, that kind of thing. But, the attack on the Death Star doesn't look that much worse like in the old version. It's just kind of cleaned up. And a lot of those visual effects hold up today. With today's technology, because it was practical, because it was miniatures, because it was stop motion doesn't really hold up, but you get the idea.
You're right.
So go ahead. I think I interrupted you.
Oh no, that's okay. But and then the fifth one, the fifth.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back was good too.
Okay, I think you were like me, and you were a little bit. I think you felt Return of the Jedi was good, but not. It was not nearly as good as Empire Strikes Back. It had all that Ewok mess
Yeah,
in the middle.
Ewoks. I didn't really... And then they were like, had their celebration.
They're jumping around in the
Yeah,
forest. It's weird.
That was just completely ruined the pace of the film.
I always thought that the end of the movie, and I think I put this out on social media like a few months ago, but I always thought the end of the movie, the final shot should be, and it should have been Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda as Force ghosts, and then sort of ended on there because it's really those three characters have been there from the beginning, and it's Anakin's arc that really rounds things out. Instead, that last shot is the Luke, Han, Leia, Lando hanging out with the Ewoks, sort of like smiling like goofballs, like it's a Christmas card. I don't understand why that's the last shot of that movie, but whatever. I digress again. So with Return of the Jedi, we last left the story. Vader had risen up. Spoilers. Had risen up against. The Emperor.
Nice that you do that for the listener.
2 seconds before I say it. Had risen up against the Emperor and thrown him down that reactor shaft, basically redeemed by his love for his son, only to perish himself in, his last moments.
You know what? I actually didn't even know that was going to happen.
What? That he was going to die?
Like, I didn't know that that's how it went for the longest time. Obviously I knew, Luke, I am your father, and that was, for some reason...
You thought that was the last movie?
I always thought that was the last movie. I don't know, because I don't remember the third movie very well.
Right.
Especially, I'd only watched it one other time, and I was 13 years old, and I tuned out. But so I thought that was the last movie, because I thought that was a great way to end the trilogy. No,
there's a whole nother movie.
Yeah,
in there,
I didn't realize that. Darth Vader died for the love of his son. I thought he basically never redeemed himself, and he just died bad.
Which well, the way I see it, the 6-movie saga is supposed to be the whole story, as Lucas envisioned it, is kind of the life of Anakin Skywalker. And then you see in the beginning of Phantom Menace, not in the beginning of Phantom Menace, but in that movie, there's this whole prophecy of this person's going to bring balance to the Force and blah, blah, blah. And then he ends up turning to the dark side. But ultimately, in the end, he does, sort of bring balance to the Force because he destroys the Sith. He just had to join them and be evil for 20 years or whatever before he could finally do that. And it's this cool, it becomes in a lot of ways a family drama about this father and his son and his children. And it's really a personal story on a certain level. Just happens to be happening in the context of this giant galactic space opera, basically. So we left it there, and then Han and Leia ended up together, and the Empire was supposedly crushed. So now in the marketing, it doesn't look like the Empire was crushed at all. So what's kind of what's your take on what you've seen in the trailers, and what do you think is going to happen in this next one? Because there's a lot of rumors and theories and stuff out there, but just figured we can kind of put our 2 cents in.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the theories because you've been telling me.
Right.
Other than that, I don't read about it, but I don't know. It could be possible Luke is bad because we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen him in the posters or any of the marketing other than his hand on R2-D2.
Well, we presume that's his hand. I wonder if that's misdirection because...
Could be.
Who knows? If Kylo Ren is really as much into the, Darth Vader's legacy and finishing what he started and all that stuff, I don't know. I wouldn't put it above him to cut his own hand off and be like, I got a robot hand like Darth Vader. I don't know.
Then why is he hand with R2-D2?
I have no idea. I don't know much more than you do, honestly. I just read more of what other people are thinking and saying. Well,
yeah, but why would? But is that was a theory that it could?
No, that was me. That was me. Okay. That was me just saying it because we're all assuming that's Luke's hand.
Well, I would like to think Kylo Ren is not corrupting R2-D2.
Yeah.
Because we obviously know Kylo Ren is bad.
Right. Or do we? I don't know.
The way he's talking in that movie, it sounds like he is. So we're going to finish what he
What do you think he means by that? Killing the Jedi? Destroying the Jedi or crushing the rebellion? Or it's all very vague right now because we don't know, first of all, who...
And he's got Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I know. What's he doing with Oscar Isaac?
Hostage.
You just saw Ex Machina the other night. So now
are
you kind of like, hey, leave Oscar Isaac alone. He's a good actor. Because you hadn't really seen him in much either.
Right.
But we don't know. First of all, we know for a fact that Kylo Ren is not his birth name.
Right.
We know that Kylo Ren is. There's actually been talk of this this group called the Knights of Ren that he was a part of at one point. So maybe that's how he learned to use a lightsaber, that kind of thing. So maybe that's some kind of offshoot of Force users. So there's speculation. We don't know if Kylo Ren is actually Han and Leia's kid, if he's Luke's kid, if he's someone else's kid, who he's really working for, how that all...
He's working for me. I've decided.
There you go.
So you bring up lightsabers.
Yeah.
So at the end of Return of the Jedi, I guess if they just, destroyed the Empire, and so, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine have lightsabers, and then Luke has a lightsaber, and Luke's now somewhere, being that or hiding or
whatever, yeah,
in the bathroom. Who knows?
Getting he's got a massive case of the shits. Yeah, for 30 years.
Exactly.
He's like, oh guys, I'm back. What happened?
And then the trailer, it did look like, based on just the voiceover, that Princess Leia was getting a lightsaber. But is that why you think there would be a Knights of Ren? Because unless they're the only other people that would know how to work a lightsaber, since all those people are now in.
Well, extinct. as far as we know, I mean, it hasn't been made clear one way or the other if Kylo Ren is actually a Sith Lord or if he's just some other person who's tied up into the dark side. So I don't know. I mean, it has been confirmed that Luke's original lightsaber, the blue one from Empire Strikes Back, when Vader's Luke, I'm your father, and he's like, that's impossible, and he cuts his hand off. That hand with that blue lightsaber, that blue lightsaber does factor into the plot of this film. And that's probably the lightsaber that Finn is holding in that one shot where looks like he's about to battle Kylo Ren. So I think there's definitely some legacy issues going on there, as if, things being passed down from one generation to the next or what have you. But I mean, my theory is, I know in the expanded universe is the fan, I don't know, most of our listeners probably knows, but it's the fan term for the novels, the comic books, the video games, all the stuff that supplementary material for the Star Wars universe that other than the 6 films. Those delve into this rich history where Han and Leia had twins, Jason and Jaina, and then another younger child named Anakin Solo. And Jason ends up turning to the dark side, and Jaina ends up becoming a Jedi. So I'm wondering if Kylo Ren and Rey are actually Han and Leia's twin kids.
It's possible. I mean, one thing I wanted to add, though, about Kylo Ren is that my theory is I do think Kylo Ren is bad. And the reason why is because we have
he's got a red lightsaber.
Yeah, we have to have another Darth Vader,
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's because when everything was happening in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, that was a family drama. It was kept inside the family. Nobody else outside of that knew what was going on with the fact that was Luke's son. They didn't realize that they had patched things up. So as far as they know, Darth Vader needs to be redeemed for not getting to finish the job. That's my theory.
Right. No, I've actually been thinking something similar, and they've been dealing with this a lot actually on Star Wars Rebels. I haven't seen season 2 yet. I'm not caught up, but I've seen season 1, and in season 2 they deal with, from what I've seen, the fact that Anakin on the Clone Wars show, and by the way, when Lucasfilm was bought by Disney released, had a press release put out that said that none of the other, like I was just saying, the expanded universe, none of that is considered canon, which means it doesn't count. It's not considered actual story that fits with the films. It's not considered part of the chronology of the story, except for the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and now the new stuff that's been coming out. So I'm thinking that they're really going to do a lot to tie in Clone Wars and Rebels to the movies. So in Star Wars Rebels, Anakin's former Padawan, Ahsoka Tano, who's the teenage girl that he was training during the Clone Wars, and she was his apprentice. She learns for the first time in season 2 of Star Wars Rebels that Darth Vader is actually Anakin Skywalker, which leads me to believe something that I've thought for a long time. It's like once that happened, and Order 66 went out there, and the Emperor and Vader wiped out all these Jedi across the galaxy, does anybody other than like Obi-Wan and Yoda really know that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, and therefore any of the connections between the other people? You know what I'm saying?
What? No. Can you clarify that more?
Like, I don't think anybody, as far as most people knew, Anakin Skywalker probably got killed with the rest of the Jedi in Order 66, because it doesn't take very long for him to have to put on that costume and to assume a new name.
Okay.
So nobody, a lot of the galaxy in general probably doesn't even know that Anakin Skywalker did not die, that he actually turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader.
That's a really, okay. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Which would build more onto what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, because Darth Vader became more of
Luke didn't even learn it until then. So right. It doesn't seem to me that in the Star Wars universe, it doesn't seem like it's common knowledge that, Anakin Skywalker.
Right, because Obi-Wan Kenobi went into hiding.
Right.
And so did Yoda.
Right.
So yeah, that's true. And Mace Windu had already died.
But and Kathleen Kennedy has said that the main Star Wars movies, Star Wars Episode 7, 8, 9, that kind of thing, what distinguishes them from the spin-off films like Rogue One, like the Han Solo movie that we're getting, is that it does continue the story of the Skywalker clan. Like it does, it's going to, like you were saying, it's like the prequels are about Anakin Skywalker. The original trilogy was about his kids, so I'm assuming this would be about the next generation, which is why I really think that Rey and not Finn, that would be weird. Rey and Finn, I mean, not that would be weird, but I don't know how you get Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and then get John Boyega out of it.
Adoption.
I guess, but they're not biological, at least. But that's why I really think that Rey and Kylo Ren are going to be Han and Leia's kids. Like, I really think that's going to happen. And like, just because the expanded universe isn't canon doesn't mean they can't draw inspiration from it and use elements of it for the film. They're just not saying this is exactly what happened. Because if they do that, then where are they going to go with the movies?
But see, okay, so
it's like
that's a good point.
It's like comic books. Like if they make a Spider-Man movie, they can draw inspiration from the comic books, but they don't have to be like, this is exactly what we're doing.
But doesn't that also piss fans off?
Sometimes, but I mean, it's also, you have to learn. There's an art in adaptation. You can't tell that necessarily that exact same story. You have to condense it down into a 2-hour format. Right. Which Marvel has been doing a really good job with, for the most part, with their films. Right.
Well, one point though to your theory, and I could agree with that, is that growing up though, you would think that if Kylo Ren really is Leia and Han's son, that he would have already known about Anakin Skywalker being Darth Vader, would have already known that things were fine with Luke and Darth Vader. And
right.
So you think he would have known those things from his own mother, who was, Darth Vader would have been his grandfather.
Right.
I should say, okay, Anakin would have been his grandfather. So I would like to think that he at least do something. So maybe with that being said, maybe he is he's maybe trying to help with things, but he's doing it his own way. Maybe he's his own rebel.
The other thing that to take into account too is that, from what I've heard, Kylo Ren is working with Supreme Leader Snoke, who I guess is like the new like Emperor type figure, and that's Andy Serkis playing. That's the one you hear in the first teaser. Andy Serkis's voiceover. He's brought to life via motion capture because of Andy Serkis, so naturally. So some people are speculating that what if that guy is actually Darth Plagueis, who was Darth Sidious's master that he thought he killed in his sleep. And he's actually been pulling the strings all along from behind the scenes.
Oh.
Do you remember? You remember in Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, and he was telling the story about how...
my master, and, telling about his own story, basically, and how he killed his master in his sleep, and that kind of thing. So
there's theories that's Darth...
That's Supreme Leader Snoke, this new character that's been lurking in the background, that might actually be Darth Plagueis, sort of running shit, and then survived the attempt on his life by Sidious.
But wouldn't he have passed away?
I mean, who knows? These aliens could be... No, Yoda was 900 years old.
That's true.
So, I mean, that's the magic of fantasy / sci-fi, since Star Wars is sort of a hybrid. It's that you could be like, nope, you can live to be 1,500 years old. It's all good. So that's something to keep into account. Maybe Kylo Ren, in his mind, maybe he's trying to finish the Sith off like his grandfather Anakin, who became Darth Vader, was trying to do initially back in the day before he got corrupted. I mean, we don't know. That's the good thing. That's the great thing about the marketing, is that they're giving us all these images and moments that we're like, holy shit, I want to see that. Holy shit, I want to see that. But they're not telling us this is what's going on. Not like Batman versus Superman, which looks like they just gave away the whole movie in that trailer. But yeah, so the chances that everyone is going to make it to the end of this movie is not very good. So who do you think is going to bite the bullet by the end of the movie? I have mine.
Carrie Fisher.
Really?
Yeah, because I think she's coming back more as out of respect, and I think it's like we've talked about before with some of these other movies where they're with like X-Men, for example, where they're doing like a timeline. So now with X-Men Apocalypse, it's just going to be all the... It's free for all? Yeah. Just all the older characters that are now younger. So I think it's going to be something like that, too. That's more just out of respect. Whether she dies or she just decides that she doesn't want to have war anymore, I don't see Carrie Fisher coming back. And you probably know more than me. I don't see Harrison Ford coming back either. I've heard that he's kind of already didn't want to do this movie in the first place. Like he's already been backed out of it a couple times. He backed out with the original too. He famously was talking to George during the making of Return of the Jedi, being like, we need to kill this guy. He's got no place here. And then thought that would give him something like interesting to play. And I guess George Lucas was against that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Harrison Ford, who I believe was probably one of the last ones to really be confirmed of the main three. Yeah, he's the one we see a lot of in the trailer.
Well, that goes into what I'm about to say. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, oh, I'll come back for this one, but just this one. Like, I don't want to be playing this again for another 10 years. I already did that. And that would also, to me, really play into why he's so prominently used in the trailers and the poster. I mean, the poster has Harrison Ford like right in the freaking middle, with Carrie Fisher right next to him. But Harrison Ford and Han Solo being such an iconic presence in these films and being so looks like he's going to be in this movie a lot, I will be super surprised if Han Solo does not die at some point in this movie. Carrie Fisher, I think they might hold on to, just because if this story really is about the Skywalker family, she's part of that, and just as Luke is. So I feel like you might need them, maybe she'll die over the course of this trilogy in the next one or whatever, or maybe have cameos in the next couple movies. But I think it's worth enough keeping her around, especially if Luke isn't in this movie as much as just because he hasn't been in the marketing. I don't really think he's going to be in it very much. Like, I think he'll be in it, obviously, because it's been confirmed, but I don't think he's going to have that much screen time. I think it's mostly going to be to answer questions and then to tease into the next movie more than anything else.
How many movies has he signed on to do?
Well, I think I read that he's coming back for episode 8, but that's all I know so far. I mean, they could pull an Obi-Wan and kill him off in this one, and then have him show up in cameos in the next couple.
As a Force ghost?
I guess, yeah.
Jeez.
So I don't know, but I think Han Solo is probably most likely to not make it through this.
Yeah.
I think Carrie Fisher, like I said, I want to see her interact with Luke. That's her brother, and especially if Kylo Ren is Han and Leia's kid, and Kylo Ren kills Han Solo.
His dad? Oh my gosh.
Might happen. I don't know. I'm speculating. Because, I mean, this whole thing is a family drama. I mean, Vader tortured his daughter in episode 4 and then cut his son's hand off in episode 5.
But to his credit, though, did he know that was his daughter in episode 4?
Not at the time.
Okay.
But who's to say that Kylo Ren knows that Han Solo is his dad? Maybe he was stolen away when he was a kid and grew up thinking he was totally something different. It could be like an Oedipus thing, like he ended up, and not Oedipus in that he married his mom, but Oedipus in that the story, the tragedy of Oedipus is that he ran away from home because he was told that he was going to kill his father and marry his mother, and he ends up doing that exact same thing, like accidentally, not even realizing that's what he's doing. So it could be like that.
Oh, wow.
And maybe Kylo Ren could be redeemed by the end of the trilogy. I don't know. This is obviously...
Just like his grandfather.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't seen this movie yet, because right now it's Monday the 14th, and we still have a few days till this comes out. But as we're posting this, people will have already seen it. So, I mean, we're just talking out of breath.
If this movie was premiering in Australia, yeah, they would already be seeing it.
Well, but I mean, I'm posting this on Friday when the movie comes out. People will have seen it in the midnight screenings the night before, and like I think they even have showings or at least locally as early as 7:30 on Thursday night. So people will already know the answers to this, and they'll be yelling at their speakers, being like, "You idiots! That's not what happens at all. You don't know." I'm like, "No, I don't know, not yet."
Or they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, she's so right."
Maybe we are really on point. So I mean, mostly my expectation is that it continues. It does justice to these old characters, and if Han Solo dies or if anything crazy happens with Luke, as long as it's done in a way that's befitting the story and the characters and doesn't like violate any of the the other previous films, like with a totally uncharacteristic turn, I'll be fine with it as long as it feels earned. And I mean, I already like what I see so far from Finn and Rey and some of the new characters. I'm excited to see that. And I think it's cool that Rey seems like she is going to be our Luke Skywalker. She is going to be like the main focus of this trilogy. So
what's Finn's story? We haven't really done any theories on who he is other than a stormtrooper.
Well, I've heard rumors that he's connected to some characters from the original trilogy. But I mean, based on the trailers, we know that he was a stormtrooper and sort of defects from the First Order, I guess, and joins the Resistance at some point, because we see him and Rey talking to Han.
What I don't understand, though, is why are there stormtroopers still? I thought that...
Well, we don't know what happened at the end of the... after Return of the Jedi, when Emperor Palpatine passed away. I mean, sometimes when a dictator is taken out, someone just comes up and rises and takes his place.
See? So, they should have followed the Mockingjay way. No spoilers there.
Yeah. Well, my review of Mockingjay Part 2 is finally up on crookedtable.com, so you people should check that out. So, I mean, mostly that's what I'm just hoping, that it captures the spirit of the original films and that sense of adventure and fun without being like too dark and too overbearing, and really being inspiring again, because that's what it's so great about the original movies. Like, you watch that and you come out of the theater just like exhilarated by being told a great story, and it's just pure escapism. And I'm really just hoping that this one is better than the prequels. Actually, even if it's better, at least better than the first two prequels, I'll be fine with that, because like I said, Episode 3 is one of my is actually higher on my list than most people. So that's what I'm hoping for, and we're going to see it on IMAX, like not crappy fake IMAX, like real giant IMAX, like dome theater IMAX. So that should be amazing, and I'll be sitting there like peeing myself in excitement, I'm sure. So what is kind of what are you expecting to feel in the theater? I mean, granted, you're not going to be...
I'm going to feel your pee under my feet.
Sorry. I apologize in advance for that then. No, I mean, obviously you're not as invested in this franchise as I am, but what kind of movie are you expecting to see? No, just on a basic, like, sensory level, like, what are you expecting to walk out of there bummed out or exhilarated or disappointed or, excited to see what happens next, or, all of the above, maybe the different moments?
Yeah, maybe different moments. I mean, it kind of reminds me in a way of a popcorn flick, but not in the same way. Like, I think it's a movie for fans to go in and have a good time and get excited and know that there's going to be another one coming another year from now.
Well, next year is an anthology standalone ones, but then so I guess 2017 will be Episode 8, which Rian Johnson is signed on to direct.
He's a Looper guy.
Yes, he's the Looper guy. So we liked his movie a lot, his last one. So I'm excited about that even more than I am about this one almost.
That's interesting. That's an interesting choice, because he has a very different eye for film than J.J. Abrams. I mean, J.J. Abrams was a good contender for this one, because
he did the same thing for Star Trek.
Well, that's why you like Star Trek better.
I'm not even. I'm not a Star Trek fan. I'll throw that out there. I'm not really. Not that I don't have anything against it. It's just I never got into it, and I never really had much interest in getting into it. But although I do like the new Abrams movies, so I guess I like his take on classic sci-fi properties. And then Colin Trevorrow, the guy that directed Jurassic World, is doing Episode 9.
See, this is what happens when you make blockbuster films. Those people
that made over $1 billion. That was a huge movie, Jurassic World. That up to now, that's the highest grossing movie of the year. Not for very long, because by the time people will be hearing this, it'll be well on its way to not being second.
So the theory is, though, that The Force Awakens is going to beat all records of all time.
Not adjusted for inflation. Because, believe it or not, Gone with the Wind is still the highest grossing movie of all time, adjusted for inflation. Because, I mean, it came out in 1939. And, you know, tickets were, what, a nickel or something? So adjusted to $10. And I guess everybody on the planet would see that, like, many times over. But, I mean, not adjusting for inflation, I could easily see this beating Avatar. And making, what did that make, 600 million, something like that?
Yeah. James Cameron beat himself
maybe
again.
Maybe even 700. I don't know. I mean, this is gonna break records for the opening weekend, opening week, opening night. This is gonna, because as you're seeing, you know, I don't think last time Star Wars was as big a deal as it is now was in 1999 when Phantom Menace came out. But you weren't with me yet, so you weren't experiencing like. Be like, check this out, this trailer. Look at this people thing. Look at this thing. Look, Star Wars is everywhere.
Well, and there also wasn't no YouTube back
true.
then either.
There wasn't social media either. Star Wars has been constantly trending on Instagram and Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff for a while.
Merchandising is crazy. Everywhere we go, there's merchandise.
Any store you go into, pretty much, yeah. There's Star Wars something.
It's like I was saying we were watching the trailer. I already feel like I saw this movie because I see the merchandise everywhere.
You're like, I don't even know who this girl is that plays Rey, but I'm tired of looking at her.
I see a lot of the Kylo Ren and a lot of BB-8.
Yeah.
It's the biggest.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. We need to get our BB-8 Christmas ornament.
I don't see as much about Rey stuff.
I see her a lot.
Really?
Her and Finn seem like they're like the two main heroes of this movie.
But she's like a regular person. BB-8 is a cute little robot that looks like a Roomba.
Yeah, he does. He goes around. There's actually been rumors. I don't know if this is confirmed or not because I don't want to like say it definitively. But I've heard that BB-8 might actually be a female character.
Oh, nice.
But I haven't seen that confirmed one way or another. So we'll see. But and that makes sense because
is BB-8 gonna date R2-D2?
That'd be crazy. That would make sense, though. That makes sense that you'd see merchandise everywhere because, I mean, the original Star Wars was really the blow-up of toys, lunchboxes, clothes, Halloween costumes. That was where this whole summer blockbuster entertainment
and that's why you said
started.
Disney wanted to really buy Lucasfilm.
I mean,
because of the merchandising.
They're going to make more money with merchandising than this movie will. In the long run.
They probably already are.
This movie will easily hit $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion, especially if it's going to hit the numbers that I think it's going to hit. But they'll make that from all the sales of all the stuff right now. In fact,
they could have already been
I heard that they haven't even spent that much comparatively, considering how huge a movie this is. They haven't really even spent that much on the marketing budget because they just have promotional deals, and that's like free market. That's like free promotion for them.
What do you mean by marketing deals?
With the promotional deals. So Coca-Cola, put Star Wars on your shit.
Cheerios.
Exactly. Cereals and like everywhere we go. I mean, we were at Barnes & Noble and they had a whole section of Star Wars stuff that I spotted from across the way. So
JCPenney, hey, Star Wars pajamas.
Everywhere, every store you go has some manufacturer making some kind of Star Wars product. So Disney's making so much money just licensing out and like, here, do the Star Wars thing. And also many companies are lining up to do anything Star Wars because they know it will sell because people love this franchise that much.
Like so the gummy snacks.
Going back to exactly. Going back to my point from a couple minutes ago, did you realize until this point how like huge this franchise is and how like everywhere it is and how beloved it is? Probably, I mean, it's not the highest grossing film franchise anymore because it's not adjusted for inflation, that kind of thing. Right now it's Marvel Cinematic Universe because they've had like 11 movies that are all made, 800 million.
And in 3D helps too.
Yeah, that does. So did you realize that Star Wars was this powerful a pop culture force, pun intended?
I mean, I did to some extent because Star Wars has been a part of my life forever because
and you're not even like a hardcore Star Wars fan. You're exactly. Like, would you consider yourself like a casual Star Wars fan? You're like, I watch them, they're good, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm not really a big movie fan in general, though. That's why it's interesting when I'm on these podcasts, because...
Well, but that's good, though, because then listeners get me being like, I'm so excited. But Kai, what did you think? And then you get to be like, well, I'm here with the more rational perspective because I could just watch this movie as a movie and not necessarily like a life-changing event.
Right. But I mean, Star Wars has been a part of my life forever. But, so, and I've known people that have been big fans of Star Wars, and But yeah, I guess I didn't realize how big it was. I mean, honestly, I thought that Star Wars was one of those subcultures.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I go to it's like Rocky Horror where people go and they dress up. Yeah. I thought it was something like that. And then when I now with this, where I see every single person I know that loves Star Wars, and they're going to the theme, they're going.
You'll see on like Friday over the weekend. You'll see everybody checking in theater.
But then again, you also gotta take into account that we're also in geek culture now. Geek is not subculture anymore. It is the culture.
I have my top 10 comic book movie list that's on crookedtable.com. I have it titled "Geek is Good." Because it really, everything now that used to be like 20 years ago was sort of like, I don't know if I feel, I don't know. That's for nerdy people or whatever. Star Wars, superheroes.
Star Trek still. Comic books, technology, video games, all of this is like mainstream. And now people look at you weird if you're like, what? You don't like Marvel movies? What the hell's wrong with you? Well, I think what is to blame for that is Best Buy with Geek Squad.
Really? When
they coined that Geek Squad, as they were the geeks that were good with technology, that it kind of made geek culture
legitimized a little bit. Yeah,
because Best Buy is going around being like Geek Squad, we're geeks with technology.
It's interesting too because all those things. What's going on is that you're seeing people that grew up with all those things. In their early stages, because when our parents were kids, the only like comic book or geeky related thing they had was like, Flash Gordon, the old Flash Gordon, or, the black. Well, no, I'm saying, I'm not even saying that. By that time, our parents were in their 20s. I'm saying when they were
Flash
kids.
Gordon.
Oh, okay.
Was the Star Wars?
Yeah. I got you. Or like, those old Ray Harryhausen movies with like, stop motion dinosaurs and that kind of thing. Or the George Reeves Superman television series. This is what they had. But when we grew up, when 30-somethings grew up, we had Star Wars, we had, the Michael Keaton Batman. Like pop culture was really already gearing towards this type of thing. And you're seeing now the beginning of the creative people that grew up with all these different geek-heavy elements in their childhood, now growing up and directing a Star Wars movie and directing, Marvel characters in films, because these people grew up with this type of thing. I can't tell you how many times I read something or listen to a podcast and someone that's directing, like, for example, Ryan Coogler, the guy that directed the Creed movie that just came out. He grew up with Rocky. That was like a thing that he had with his dad, that they went to see the Rocky movies together, and it was like a huge part of his childhood, the way that Star Wars is for a lot of people. So he grew up wanting that, like, and he basically willed that movie to happen, this Creed movie, to the point that then it was his take on it was so fresh and so like awe-inspiring that he was able to get Sylvester Stallone to be part of the project, and now he's probably going to win an Oscar for reprising the role he played like 40 years ago almost.
But isn't that interesting how that happens? We have friends that they've now made their livelihood, being part of the Star Wars experience. Yeah. It's like, I love this film so much, I'm going to make this part of my life and part of what I get paid for. They're taking that Confucius quote to a whole new level. That's ultimately, that's the dream, to take your passion and do something with it. And that's what you're doing every day, is you're writing about the things that you care about, and that's pop culture and movies. Yeah. And you're getting paid for it, and you're talking about it right now, and that's
exactly.
So there you go. Geek culture is in. Geeks are now cooler than me, because I'm not a geek. I don't know what I geek out over. So
you geek out over office supplies and
that's true.
Tofu and random things that most people are like. You're the real subculture.
Is not a subculture. Though.
Tofu is.
Oh yeah, I know.
You're the real subculture. You're like, I thought Star Wars was subculture. I'm like, I don't think you know anything about Star Wars then. So any final thoughts as we wrap up this one?
No, I think we said a lot, and we'll just continue this discussion after the movie.
Yeah. So Star Wars The Force Awakens, I could say this because by the time I post this it'll be true. Star Wars The Force Awakens is now in theaters. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. You can reach me on Twitter at Crooked Table.
And you can reach Kai, me, at The Vault Key LLC on Twitter.
Also like us on Facebook. Visit crookedtable.com for all our latest articles. This episode I'm putting up the day that Star Wars The Force Awakens hits theaters. We will have a follow-up episode that will come out on the following Monday, so the 21st. So keep a lookout for that. If it might already be posted, depending on when you're listening to this. But yeah, let us know what you thought of the movie. I would love nothing more than to get into a spirited discussion with some Crooked Table.
But no spoilers before Friday.
Well, but they won't hear this till Friday.
Right. Okay.
So we should be good.
Okay.
Unless I post this Friday morning and then people are like tweeting at me like, I can't believe this happened. I'll be like, oh, not yet. I haven't gone yet.
Yes. Yeah. So no spoilers until Saturday.
Right. There you go.
Until Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Crooked Table Podcast. Stay tuned for part 2 of this as Kai and I go over our reaction to the film, detailed analysis. I'm going to make her get as geeky about it as I possibly can. So, until next time, we'll catch you guys later.
Who are you?
I'm no one.
I was raised to do one thing. But I've got nothing to fight for.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. The Jedi.
Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
And this is part 2 of our Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens doubleheader, I guess is what we're going to go with. We have now already seen the movie. We're recording this Sunday following the film's release. So we've had a couple of days to kind of marinate over the intense goings-on of the film. Sort of, I think we talked about the movie immediately after when we got home from the theater for like at least an hour or stuff, just going back and forth, being like, but what about this thing that happened? Or what about this character? I don't know how I feel about this. And sort of our general reactions, right?
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
Wow, thanks. Way to contribute. So, since we already have an episode filled with our hopes and our dreams, or maybe just mine and Kai reacting to it, you can listen to part 1 of this episode. Going forward, we will have spoilers. We will discuss the film in depth, the fates of many of the characters, where it leaves us for episode 8, which is due for release in 2017. And so if you want to walk into the theater unsullied and you're one of like the 5 people that didn't contribute to the $500 million worldwide opening weekend that the film had, please wait until after this. Wait until after you've seen the film to listen to this. Otherwise, you've been warned. So, the movie starts, and we meet Kylo. We meet Kylo Ren pretty much right away, like opening scene, which which was very much a parallel to Darth Vader's introduction in almost the first scene of Episode 4. And there's a lot of similarities and parallels that we'll get into going forward.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Oh, I mean, how can you not mention that? A lot of people that have been writing about this movie have noted how it is essentially part sequel, part reboot, part remake in some degree.
But is that them paying homage, or is that lazy screenwriting?
A little balance between the two. I mean, it's also paying tribute to the earlier films, and if they're trying to reintroduce this after 32 years since the last film that hardcore fans all pretty much universally embrace. I mean, it makes sense that part of that process would involve going back to a lot of the elements of that original trilogy and sort of, reintroducing them, reinterpreting them for this next generation of characters. So I guess we should probably, before we start getting into deep into the film, what was kind of your general impression to the movie, and did it meet your expectations? Granted, you weren't as hyped about this as I was, but did it meet your expectations? Were you bored, or were you how did it compare to the other films in the series? And what was your general rating on a scale of 5? We normally
There's a lot of questions. My initial viewpoint on the movie was it actually was pretty good, and we saw it we actually saw it in IMAX Dome, and there was a lot of cheering for things, for characters that showed up, for scenes that happened. So that was fun. It's always a fun experience to see movies and to have the audience react. So I like that. And so it was a good film. Rob always asks me after every movie, says, how many stars? So I'll give this one 4 out of 5. I usually don't go any higher than a 4. Or
3.5.
Or 3.5. Yeah, I'm not really. I don't give 4.5s or 5s to very many things. So it's a 4, and I think I liked Rey a lot. She was a very strong character, and as a female, it was nice to see a female lead, like a female heroine, especially in a Star Wars movie where there aren't really that many of them. And there's Padme, but
Padme and Leia, and that's about it.
Yeah, Padme got kind of weaker as her storyline went on, and Princess Leia was a little bit more she's sometimes too aggressive. I don't think she really had a fine balance of femininity with assertiveness. It was just a lot of times just aggressive. But I think Rey was a nice combination of both of them. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I said soon after we saw the movie, if Rey ends up being a Skywalker descendant, which I think everybody is sort of theorizing that she's going to end up being either Luke's niece or Luke's daughter or some kind of connection blood-wise to the rest of the original trilogy cast. She does have a nice balance of Padme's compassion and Leia's strength. Granted, Padme and Leia were both had those attributes, but I felt like Padme was more like the softer, maternal type, and like you were saying, Leia was always more assertive, more like, I can handle this myself, grabbing the gun from Han Solo and shooting the stormtroopers herself in the Episode 4 and that kind of thing.
But maybe in the 70s, that's how women take charge. Women were viewed in society,
That's
and I think that having a film like Star Wars and and some other films.
Well, we were talking about that earlier today. This was a really good year for strong female leads between Mad Max Fury Road and The Hunger Games, and I mentioned Sicario and Cinderella even was sort of that same kind of thing, but portraying her really as a strong female figure.
Yeah, so it's really good to see such strong females that are really being characterized the way that I feel like women are. We're very complicated. We're assertive, or we're vulnerable, we're compassionate, and we're nurturing, yet we're strong and resilient, and we're a lot more than just, one-dimensional characters.
And even Leia, for most of that first movie, was waiting to be rescued on the Death Star, sort of damsel in distress until almost at least midway through, where Luke comes in and is like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you. I have your droid, I'm with Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi, where is he? And then she's sort of becomes a little more take charge. But yeah, so I would probably give this a 4.5. would love to give it a perfect score, but I mean, it does rely a lot on previous films, so I have to sort of knock it a little bit because of that. There were several moments in the theater where I was like, my heart was like beating really hard, and I was really breathless, and that big moment, Rey's big heroic moment towards the end. Again, spoilers, when she catches the lightsaber after Kylo Ren and Finn are facing off, and Finn is basically out of commission 2 seconds later. And the lightsaber shoots over to Rey, who uses the Force to grab it. That was one of those like holy shit moments, like evoking the same kind of nostalgic spirit of the originals and excitement as something like the big T-Rex reveal in the end of Jurassic World. Only even more so, and
people reacted. That was one of the audience reactions,
and that was one of the few reactions that had nothing to do with, hey, the Millennium Falcon, or look, it's Han Solo, or there's Luke Skywalker. It was more like, holy shit, we're witnessing the next huge iconic character in this franchise, sort of taking charge of her destiny.
You know, when you think about it, yeah, it is really exciting that there's a Star Wars movie outside of the three original films. I mean, that's pretty exciting because I guess everybody wanted to know. I know everybody wants
taking place afterwards.
Yeah, taking place afterwards. Yeah. You know, this is the first time in history that we're seeing a Star Wars movie after what happened for almost 40 years ago now.
Yeah, and this is the last time we're gonna have a decade or more of hype in between films, probably for a long, long, long time. Because I mean, it's been a decade since Revenge of the Sith, and that was supposed to be the last movie. It was George Lucas's eyes, that was sort of like the end of the Vader story, which has kind of been the running theme throughout. And now we're going to be getting a film every year, alternating between official episodes and then the standalone movies. So I mean, yeah, people have been waiting 30-something years to see, okay, what happened to Luke, what happened to Han, what happened to Leia. And the movie, one of the things I would sort of knock again a little bit is that ending is like, the ending is so powerful and exciting, but I'm like, oh man, I would have liked a little more Mark Hamill. Just, he didn't even say anything. Just like a sentence, a phrase, a word, something. That drove me a little crazy. I was like, oh man, I want to watch episode 8 right now, and I have to wait 2 years.
Well, it's better than waiting 10.
Right, that's true. And, back in the day, I mean, we all grew up with all the other movies were, I mean, not the prequels, but the original trilogy with these characters was all on video or DVD, and you can basically just pick it up, be like, all right, next one. It's been a while for a Star Wars film of this quality to come out, and then for us to then be like, be forced to wait years until the next story. I mean, I went through some of that with the prequels, but I mean, come on, this is a better movie than all three of those, like easily in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I watched all of them consecutively, recently. So yeah, this movie was pretty good. It wasn't, there weren't as many plot holes, or weren't so many, oh my gosh, did they just say that? Moments. And
nobody talked about sand.
Yeah. There was a lot of sand though.
There was a sand planet.
Yeah. But there was a love story. So we'll hopefully see how that goes.
Are you talking about Finn and Rey?
Yes.
There was inklings of an attraction. More on his end, which I thought was cool. It wasn't her being like, I'm in love, I have feelings for you, Finn. It's more him being like, so you got a boyfriend? You got a cute boyfriend? What's going on? What's the deal with that? And oh my God, he was great. Okay, I guess we should let's focus in. Oh, we kind of did our general impression, so let's focus in now on the cast, the new cast, the old cast, and then we can get into story details from there. So I did see John Boyega in Attack the Block. I was telling you this earlier today, and I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I'm pretty sure I was doing something else, and it was streaming on Netflix. Or it was late at night, so I wasn't really. I actually now have it again to try and give it another shot now that I've seen him in this. But he was really charismatic as hell in this, and very very funny. He had a lot of the comic relief, sort of the everyman of the story in a way, which is weird because he's a stormtrooper, but he's not, because he there was that line where he literally said, "I was about to do it was in my first battle, and I couldn't kill for them. I just couldn't do it," and that kind of thing. And I thought that was something fresh that we hadn't seen in these movies before, in a perspective that, we've had people go from Jedi to Sith Lord and back, but we have never had someone like one of the henchmen for the Empire, or in this case the First Order, being like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel right. This is not where I belong. And feeling responding to a calling elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good thing, because I like it when I see characters do the right thing and show integrity in their actions, and definitely Finn had a lot of integrity with that, and was an interesting character because, you know, he wasn't being completely honest with Rey because he liked her and was worried that if she found out he was a stormtrooper in the past, then she wouldn't like him anymore. But he had to step up, be a man, and say, hey, you know, I'm not who you think I am. And I think that was a lot of Han's
influence.
He's
like,
well.
oh, women are going to find out the truth, you know, always. There's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I like how the trailers and the poster are painting him as like our new hero. And then, you know, of course, it ends up being revealed that he's not the center of this new story. He seems like he's more of the, I don't know, more the Han Solo or the Leia out of the story than the Luke. Because Rey is clearly the Luke Skywalker. She's the chosen one. She's the one that felt the Force calling to her. I mean, the title refers to the Force Awakening.
But she's also on the poster.
Yeah, but she is. But
the one we saw in IMAX was just her and BB-8.
Oh yeah. I'm referring more to all the trailer footage and the poster where Finn is holding the lightsaber and they hyped up this lightsaber fight between him and Kylo Ren. That didn't really happen. That wasn't very much for Finn to do there. He was not the one that was really holding his own. So I thought that was all really smart misdirection on the part of the movie. And they had amazing chemistry together. BB-8 and BB-8 was great, and just as much.
BB-8 is cuter than R2-D2, I think.
Yeah,
but
he's more expressive.
Yes, and we did find out that IMDb did write that BB-8 was the original model for R2-D2, but at the time they didn't have the capability to do that. So then BB-8, R2-D2 has now been reborn into BB-8. So
yeah, the concept art or whatever, like the digital design,
not the character.
No, yeah.
Don't worry,
R2-D2, he's in there, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But you know, BB-8 was just as much of a highlight as, you know, the promotion for this movie would have entailed or implied, because, you know, they were going all over the place at Comic-Cons and stuff, showing off the little robot rolling around, because that was a practical effect. That was not there was I don't think hardly any point where BB-8 was CG. That was a real robot, real thing that they created with a remote control.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, it was pretty cute trying to go down the stairs.
Yeah, going one at a time, and very very expressive as far as the fact that his little headpiece could wiggle around, and like I was telling you, he can, like, you know, there was a moment where Rey is like, oh, or Finn is like, tell her where the base is, and he's like looking between Finn and Rey trying to decide what he should do. or later on, and then after when he said he told her where it was, Finn gives him the little thumbs up, and BB-8 does the little flame thumbs up thing. That was super cute. He was very endearing, and pretty much right from the beginning of the movie, I was already involved. I was already invested in Finn, BB-8, Rey, Poe Dameron, who Oscar Isaac has been doing stellar work for years. And it's nice to see him in a film of this, you know, this size and scope. Of course, we're going to see that again in like 5 months when X-Men comes out.
And in case you all don't know, Oscar Isaac was also in that movie that not that many people saw, but was Sucker Punch.
Yeah, the Zack Snyder movie.
I think that was the first movie we saw him in.
That was the first movie we saw him in. He was really great in that too.
That was only 4 years ago. Look at all the things he's been doing.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. So, and I'm sure that he wanted to be in this movie. I mean, I'm sure that...
Well, I read earlier today that was supposed to be a small role. So early in the film, when Poe Dameron is presumed dead, like, I guess the character was really supposed to die there. And then it was just supposed to take over Finn and Rey's story from that point. But, of course, you know, he ends up coming back later on and being more instrumental in the resistance side of things. And hopefully being back, you know, hopefully he'll be one of the major players going forward with episode 8 and 9.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, we didn't get very much of him, but I think this was more like, hey, there's this guy, he's really cool, and he has some great funny lines when the interrogation scene with Kylo Ren. He's like, so who talks? Do I talk? Do you talk? How does this work?
There were a lot of funny lines in general.
Yeah, it was a very humorous film, which I'd heard about like the day or so beforehand, just like from some like reactions that I'd read without really getting deep into it, because I avoided pretty much all the reviews. I mean, I heard that it was positive buzz going into it, but I didn't really read anything because I was trying to remain as unsullied as possible. So I think it was really just to establish that he's in this world, and then they'll do presumably they'll do more with that character in the sequels. But yeah, it's nice to see Oscar Isaac in here, and he did a great job. They all really did. But Daisy Ridley, she was kind of a revelation in this movie, and she essentially stole the whole film. I would venture to say that Rey was an even more compelling character in this film than Luke Skywalker was in the original trilogy. I don't know what it is about her. She's just got more of a presence and more of a vulnerability about her, like a world weariness. Whereas Luke and Anakin were both kind of whiny and like spoiled kids who were then exposed to how complex the world really was. Rey sort of already knew about that. She was a scavenger and like hunting down for parts so she could like get some of this gross globby stuff to eat.
Was that supposed to be bread?
I think it was supposed to. I think it was because it looked like the packages, the quarter portion, whatever. It looked like that was vacuum sealed. So it looked like she was putting it in a pan and then like adding some water, and it was like dehydrated food or something, which was very much of a kind of an astronaut type of type of technology, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because it looks like it's a post. See, that's the thing with Star Wars. Some of these worlds look like they're post-apocalyptic, yet it's still it's still in a different galaxy.
Right.
So that's interesting to me.
I'm not sure why they had her on a desert planet called Jakku. I mean, why didn't they just make it Tatooine again? I mean, because that's too repetitive. I mean, there were so many parallels and references to the original trilogy. It's like, why not just make it Tatooine? We all know that it's a Tatooine stand-in. I don't understand the point of that.
Yes, exactly. Well, one of my questions is, who was that guy in the beginning of the movie? Are we ever going to know who that is?
That was Max von Sydow, the actor. I don't know how important that is. Some people have speculated that character might be more important later on in like some of the novels or some of the spin-off films and that kind of thing, and they'll establish him as a younger version elsewhere, and then that sort of explain what he's doing here early on. But
if you don't read the comic books and you don't know anything about that, then how are you supposed to know about it for the movie?
You don't have to. He's just a guy.
He was an important enough guy that Poe Dameron came back to that planet.
Well, to get the map to Luke Skywalker.
Well, how come that guy had the map to Luke Skywalker? He must be important.
I guess, but I mean, it's all the movies sort of...
He even said about Princess Leia, or General Leia now, says, she's royalty to me.
Yeah.
And so clearly he already had a very close relationship with her.
Well, she was a princess at one point, and her mom was queen before that, so I wonder how much of that he actually knows.
See, that's funny that Leia got to grow up under royalty, and Luke had to grow up under like Tatooine.
Right, pretty much.
But at least they were left with family.
Yeah, he wasn't a slave like his dad was, at least.
Yes, that's true.
It's interesting how it's a multi-generational story, right?
Yes, but I think that Rey is Luke's daughter, because my reasoning for thinking this is that when Leia and Han see Rey, well, first Han sees her first. There wasn't much recognition, much attachment to her. I mean, if that's his daughter, you'd think that he would care about her too, not just about Kylo Ren, the son that he lost. It just didn't seem like he's just
But he did. I mean, he tried to like offer her a job under the guy, which seemed like he was more like, you're a good person. I want to have you around, make sure you're safe, and that kind of thing. I don't know.
Right, but wonder why that he couldn't. I mean, he didn't.
Well, Leia straight up hugs her at the end.
But that could be a sign that's her aunt.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. There's definitely some kind of connection there, but it would also really convolute the story if that's their daughter. It's like, well, how did that happen? Was she left somewhere?
Right.
I mean, but if it was Luke, and Luke was like ashamed of what he inadvertently did to his nephew, it makes sense why you'd be like, yeah, this kid that I have, I'm just gonna fuck up her life too. I'm gonna leave you here and then take off and then maybe come back at some point.
Right.
So that would establish that. And she did have that vision, which looked like it had some flashbacks to when she was a little girl, right?
Right. And it was all involving Luke, involving Kylo Ren, and like
she has a rebel helmet that looked like the one Luke wore in the original trilogy when he was in the X-Wing.
Oh, what? I
In the
didn't see
beginning,
that.
she was sliding down.
Oh, yeah, right.
Down the sand, and she's like sitting there watching the ships take off while she's eating her little bread thing. And she has this helmet on, and she's just kind of chilling.
Right.
I even heard that she had a doll that looks sort of like Luke, but I don't remember that. And when I see that, I haven't seen this film a second time yet, obviously, but well, not obviously. Some people see it like 3 or 4 times
Right.
now. But I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to yet. I will be doing that though. But yeah,
there was just too much closeness, too much attachment to Luke to have her be Han and Leia's child. It
Right.
just one, because they didn't really seem like they were very attached to her as their daughter, and then two, yeah, it was too convoluted for the story. I mean, why? Yeah, have one child that you raised that then went bad, and then another child that got abandoned, and then 3, she just seems so connected to Luke with her flashbacks and
well, she's essentially supposed to be
lightsaber.
She's essentially supposed to be the Luke Skywalker of the story. So I mean, it sort of makes sense a little bit she would feel like she has like such a connection to that character already. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I like that they didn't explain everything in this movie though too, because then there wouldn't be as much mystery or anticipation surrounding. I mean, we would be super excited about Episode 8, but now we're like, oh shit, now what does this mean? What is Luke doing? Is he bad? What's he doing with his saber? Is he going to like train her now? Or is he going to be like, thanks for the saber, get out of here? I mean, or are they related? Or what's, they leave a lot of unanswered questions. Supreme Leader Snoke made a reference to bring Kylo Ren to me, I'm going to complete his training. The fuck does that mean? Complete his training how? Why wasn't his training complete?
Because he seems very Darth Vader-y to me.
My theory is that he's like, there's something I have to do, but I don't know if I can. And when he finally, spoilers, when he finally slays his own father, I think that Supreme Leader Snoke was like, I want to train you and make you like a legit Sith Lord or whatever title they're going to use and complete your training, but you have to resolve that conflict within yourself. And maybe Kylo Ren, in his mind, that was to kill his father.
Right.
Sort of similar.
So terrible.
Well, yes, but
what a way to go out, Han Solo.
Sort of like you remember in Return of the Jedi, Luke is like, is Vader my father? And then Obi-Wan and Yoda are basically confirmed, like, yeah, your father he is, and that kind of thing. You have to face him. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't kill my own father. And then Obi-Wan's like, then the Emperor's already won. It's like, this is your final, we need you to face Vader. To really, and only then will you be a Jedi. Only then can we bring balance to the Force. So it's sort of like the dark, fucked up, perverted version of that in this movie. Supreme Leader Snoke probably...
They both sound dark and perverted to me.
Well...
How are they different?
But Vader is bad and needs to be stopped. Kylo Ren is doing this to appease his master. And to quiet his tormented soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's still bad. All of it's bad. It's all death and destruction. But I mean...
But why is Jedi encouraging there to be murder?
Not murder. You have to face Vader and defeat him.
Which is killing.
Yeah, but if it's not in cold blood, you give him a chance to defend himself. It's different. It's like a samurai or like Knights of the Round Table type of mentality. If you defeat them in battle, it's not like you walk up behind them and stab them in the back. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm almost positive that Snoke instructed Kylo Ren to basically do that. And now that he's completed that task, now he can complete his training.
How does Snoke know this?
I don't know. We don't know who the hell. Well, I'm sure the witnesses or. I mean, who knows?
There are only 4 witnesses.
He can sense it. Who the hell knows?
3 witnesses.
He can sense in the Force. He can sense it in the Force. Okay,
I guess. Okay.
Ultimately it's a fantasy, and they can explain anything away if they really want to. But yeah, he could probably sense it or something. But we don't even know who Snoke is. Remember we talked about last podcast about, is that Darth Plagueis or is that something else, or how does he fit with anything? We didn't really get any of those answers here. However, I was right about Kylo Ren being Han's kid.
Yes, kid. You are.
We don't know about Rey yet either, but we'll get there. I feel like it's going to get to that point where people are going to be disappointed if she's not connected to them somehow by blood. You know?
Well, it's like you said in the last podcast. The Kathleen Kennedy wants to continue the story of the Skywalker family. Mm-hmm. Well, if Rey's going to be, she's the main star of this franchise now, then I would assume she's a Skywalker.
Yeah.
Or else why do we care about her? I don't care about her if she's a Skywalker. If she's not one.
I still care about her. She's kind of awesome. She was probably the best character in the movie, which, is encouraging because the lead character of the last trilogy was bitching about sand the whole time. And,
and then his son bitched about things being unfair. Yeah.
His son is like, I want to go up to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. That kind of thing. No, but Rey was instantly magnetic, and I'm hoping that Daisy Ridley can transform this, can kind of use this movie as a launch pad to like a really strong and prosperous career, because I think she can. I think she can do it. I think everybody's gonna walk out and be like, "Who the hell was that girl?" And this is really her first like real major movie. I mean, she's only been in I think maybe one other film feature on IMDb, and it was something that didn't have very many ratings, so I'm assuming it's super indie. Or something like that, and so I mean that was very exciting. We haven't. Maybe
she was a movie she did in her theater class because she actually went to a theater school in England.
Were you reading up on the trivia?
I always read up on the trivia, but I didn't finish it because it's too long already. It's too long already.
Well, it's Star Wars. I mean, there's a lot of this has been reported as this movie's been going through production and all.
Right, I know, but the other ones are really long too. Right. And this one just came out, so I can only imagine more trivia they're going to add to it.
We didn't talk about Kylo Ren, though, of the main new character. So how did you feel about him as a villain, as a complex, main figure in this new trilogy, and sort of, I guess, comparing to Vader, which is clearly his inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a decent job. I mean, he was definitely intimidating, and he was stronger with the Force than Darth Vader was. I mean, Darth Vader was doing like a chokehold type thing.
Darth Vader was also first he was older. Secondly, if the Force relies on midi-chlorians, which I know, whatever, but we'll ignore that. It's in your bloodstream. At this point, Vader was like an armless, legless, like stump of a man, basically.
True.
He was all machine, so he lost a lot of his abilities to use the Force. I mean, Anakin in Revenge of the Sith was much stronger before he got cut down and burnt to death, basically, almost. So that's a lot of that. And Kylo Ren's not even fully trained. Can you imagine? He's going to be more powerful than Anakin was in Episode 3 if this is any indication.
Yes. I mean, I didn't like the fact when he took off his mask.
He's just like, it's the guy that works at Starbucks down the street.
Right. I didn't want him to take off his mask, but I understood the scenes to why he did that.
Right.
The scene with when we first see him do that with Rey, and then when we see him do that with his dad. I mean, I get that. It's more showing vulnerability, like showing I'm not afraid. I don't need a mask to be
his mask was
bad.
His mask is pretty badass, and his lightsaber is pretty badass.
Yes.
And he had a lot of amazing moments. Like in the beginning, I think Poe Dameron, shoots a blaster at him, and the like blaster bolt like stops midair. He stops it with the Force, and you see it like sitting there. And then he gets Poe Dameron, he kills a bunch of people, whatever, makes some orders, and then walks away, and then you see the blaster bolt finish flying across the screen. Holy crap, that was some cool stuff.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, the very beginning, where he takes Poe and tortures him.
Wow. I guess I don't remember that scene with the blaster. Just obviously I remember when he was being tortured.
Right.
But kind of to talk a little bit about a plot hole related to the Kylo Ren story is that, Rey really, but I think it was a plot hole that Rey was so good with her Jedi powers because Luke had to train for months to even have the ability to move things with his mind and to do the Jedi mind trick and to even use a lightsaber. And she just got it.
Yeah, Luke didn't even do a Jedi mind trick until Return of the Jedi.
Oh.
Which was after 2 movies of learning stuff from Obi-Wan and then Yoda. I'm backing you up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a really cool moment, and it's great that she's, showing
and that Stormtrooper were voiced by Daniel Craig in a cameo there.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until I'm gonna have to when I rewatch the movie. I'm gonna have to pay attention and be like, hey, is that James Bond? Because I didn't even notice it this time.
And there are 3 British people in this movie.
Yeah, John Boyega. Did you count him?
Yep. Daisy Ridley and Daniel Craig.
Oh, and Domhnall Gleeson.
Oh,
and
him too.
Gwendolyn Christie. as Captain Phasma, who, by the way, was...
Lupita Nyong'o's from Africa, so...
Yeah, I think so. And, I mean, Gwendolyn Christie, Captain Phasma was kind of a waste of a character. I mean, I guess we're going to see more of her in the sequel, but I'm not interested.
What happened to her? I thought she was died or something. They killed her.
I don't know what they did. I don't care. I don't really care about her. I was sort of uninterested.
I like her costume though. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, the chrome stormtrooper style.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I just think there was a plot hole with that. Rey was a little too good.
Well, we also don't know her background. We don't know where she came from.
And why is she a pilot?
If she is I don't know. She flies things around on the planet. Who knows? If she is a Skywalker, that would explain a little bit of that natural inclination towards the Force. Leia never studied the Force. She could feel things in it and stuff.
True.
She could sense in Empire Strikes Back. She's like, I know where Luke is. Remember?
Yeah.
When he's dangling there with his one hand, he's like, Leia. She's like, I'm Luke. She can hear him.
True.
She didn't train shit. She didn't even know. They didn't even know.
But did she also know that because that's her brother?
She didn't know that was her brother at the time, though.
Oh, true. Okay.
So, plus in the flashback with Rey, we see her as a little girl. We don't know if Luke is her dad. We don't know if she was learning some of the Jedi stuff beforehand, and like he started to teach her things or talk to her about it.
And maybe that's why she remembered the whole Jedi mind trick. Then
she could have repressed some of these memories. We don't know. She doesn't seem like she knows a whole lot about what happened before her family left.
Yeah,
so
just
again,
been waiting.
That's why we have 2 more sequels. So we'll hear a lot more about that, I'm sure. So Kylo Ren, I think it was interesting that when he took off the helmet, or I guess it's more of a mask than a helmet. When he took off the mask, he didn't have any, like, he wasn't scarred or anything, any kind of disfigurement going on. Whereas, Vader's whole thing was he was burned alive or whatever and all that stuff.
He couldn't even breathe.
Right. So he was dependent on the mechanical suit to keep him alive. Kylo Ren's, all his scars and all his, like, complexities seem to be emotional and psychological, like being torn between the dark and the light, and actually being tempted to the light for once, which we've never really seen a bad character be tempted towards the light side. We've seen a good character be tempted towards the dark side a couple of times, but we've never seen a bad character that was anything other than absolute evil.
Right.
Darth Maul, Sidious, Count Dooku, like we didn't see anything redeeming really in any of these guys.
Just wonder what happened to him, that he, basically betrayed his family by going to the dark side, and that he betrayed his uncle, his teacher, to go to the dark side. Like, what happened in his childhood that made him just feel just want to disconnect so much? I mean, I'd like to think there was a lot of love there. Unlike Anakin, I mean, think about the first movie, in A New Hope. We don't really know a lot about any of those people's backstories. It's not until the sequels where they really flesh everything out. And you're like, oh, that's why Luke, blah 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 blah. So I'm assuming we'll get a lot more of that on behalf of Rey and Kylo Ren, since they do seem to be the 2 opposing figures of this trilogy going forward. So who do we think Finn is related to? I
don't know if he's going to be related to anybody. I heard rumors that he would be related to Lando. But honestly, I almost sort of hope that he's not. Because, each of these trilogies has, like, one African-American male in it. It's like, would we really need to have him be related to one of the other 2? Either Mace Windu or Lando Calrissian? It's like, I don't know.
Well, I think that was the initial theory because he had, in the trailer, he had the lightsaber. And it's like, oh.
Well, that would be more Mace Windu than Lando.
Yeah, he knows the ways of the Force. But now that he was just a stormtrooper guy, then he could just be a stormtrooper guy. Plus, he even said, "I just got my name. Like I just became
FN
2187."
Was it 2187?
Yeah, nobody really had asked him. That became who he was. So
yeah, he was taken from his family when he was a kid, and trained by the First Order. Yeah, so I don't know if we're gonna. We don't really need to know everybody's backstory to this extent, but Rey and Kylo Ren, I'm sure we'll get lots more about that going forward in the next movie. So do we want to talk a little bit about all the parallels between this one and Episode 4?
Sure.
And how it's a little excessive? So first of all, we come into the movie and you meet the bad guy who's wearing a mask and has a deep voice that sounds like it's exaggerated by some kind of mechanical alterations. Coming in and killing a bunch of people and taking a hostage Meanwhile, that hostage put some vital information into a droid who's like runs away with it onto a desert planet and runs into...
Well, they were already on the desert planet.
I know, whatever. Well, instead of sending him from space and landing on a desert planet.
Right.
Okay, whatever. These are broad strokes, obviously. And then finding a person who has an untapped ability to harness the Force, who ends up getting swept up in a larger adventure involving Han Solo and Leia and this rebellion against the government. And there was a lot of that. Like, the story is essentially Episode 4. It's a little bit different. To the point that they're even attacking Starkiller Base, which is a different shaped Death Star, basically, that blows up planets. I could have done without Starkiller Base, and when that whole attack was going on, I didn't really give a shit about that. I was way more invested in Han and Kylo Ren and Rey and all the like personal family drama happening between those characters, rather than we gotta shoot this thing and blow it up again before this is the third time we've seen that. I don't know what are your reaction? What are your thoughts about all the parallels to the original film? I mean, to the point where we even had a mentor to one of our new characters get slain right in front of them. I mean, that whole Kylo Ren killing Han Solo on the bridge, which was a clear homage to Empire Strikes Back, where he's like, you and me can, just overthrow the Emperor and rule the galaxy as father and son. Right on which again happened like on a catwalk.
But Kylo Ren didn't say that to Han Solo.
I'm not saying that. He said the exact
But
same
he said
words.
it to Rey. So that's definitely a parallel.
Well, I mean, all
did
the
say it
bad
to
guys
Rey.
do that.
He's like, you're knowledgeable about the Force. You
need a teacher. I could train you.
And so that is definitely a parallel, just a
But
different...
the catwalk, I mean, it's a similar setting to Empire Strikes Back.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, he kills Han Solo, who was positioning himself to be sort of a father figure to Rey, right in front of Rey as she's watching, almost going no, just like that part where Ben Kenobi gets killed by Vader in that lightsaber battle in the original film. There was a lot of that, to the point where it was sort of becoming easy for me to predict where this was going to go. I'm like, I'll say this and then this and then this. Yeah, okay, thought so.
And how would the screenwriter even not think that people are going to jump to those conclusions? If you're such a fanatic Star Wars fan, then you clearly have seen the movies thousands of times over.
Right.
So I'd like to think that it was more of an homage compared to lazy screenwriting. Yeah,
I know. I mean, they were trying to capture the nostalgia and the spirit of the original films. And I mean, it's not like it was an exact remake, but there were enough moments that seemed almost directly lifted out of the original film for me to knock the film a little bit just because of that. However, I mean, the story they set it up for in episode 8 with Rian Johnson writing and directing, that's positioned to probably be the best, to probably be even better than this movie, because now you don't have to be like, here's this girl, here's this stormtrooper guy who's not a stormtrooper anymore, here's this other scary black guy in black, scary black, I almost said scary black guy. I mean, not Finn, I'm talking about Kylo Ren. Scary guy wearing all black with a red lightsaber. Here's Luke and Leia. You know who they are. This is what happened. This is their motivation. Let's go. And I think in the next movie they can basically pick it up from there, and really take off and bring a lot more imagination and innovation to the story that we didn't get a chance to see in this one, because it was in a lot of ways sort of a reintroduction.
Right, exactly. It was like an origin story.
Sort of. Plus,
right.
I mean, George Lucas, I mean, granted he wasn't involved in this movie, but he said with the two trilogies, there's a lot of parallels and a lot of moments and story beats that happen again slightly differently to different characters or whatever, but they kind of callbacks.
Like history repeating itself.
Like history repeating itself, and also like he's referred to the saga as sort of poetry or sort of music and how it comes around, and there's certain notes or refrains that are repeated, throughout the full piece, and there was a lot of that here. So it's just, for me, it went slightly over the line of being of falling into that, and almost to the point of like another Death Star, come on, really? Let's do something else.
I like Starkiller Base. That's a cool name.
Well, actually, that's funny, because Starkiller, they named it that because in the original version of Episode 4, the main character was named Luke Starkiller.
Oh, yeah, right.
Was that in the trivia too?
It was. And wasn't that actually a Flash Gordon name.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Flash Gordon was a big inspiration for the original film.
I've heard that.
Yeah. The original Flash Gordon's from like the 40s and 50s, the ones that Lucas grew up with, not the Flash on, Savior of the Universe, that movie in 1980. That's a totally separate thing.
Oh yeah, right. Well,
because you remember in Ted, Sam Jones, the blonde guy that played Flash Gordon on the show, on that movie back in the 80s. It's totally separate. That was the 1980 reboot of Flash Gordon from like the 40s or whatever. So I mean, I think the next film could be a lot better, and I'm just really excited to see what happens next for these characters. But as for this one, I mean, it did an excellent job of capturing the spirit of the original films, and referencing the backstory of the returning characters enough that it plays into the current events of the story, but not really being like, oh, so Leia, give me your whole history. It's like, I don't have to know. They were together, then I had a kid, they're not together, now she's running things again. That's all I need to know. They both fell back into the things they know. I mean, they do enough of that without sort of like hand feeding you exposition, whereas the prequels were like, okay, we're going to tell you how the politics of Naboo work. And let's talk about the Senate hearing, and let's tell about nobody gives a shit. Focus on the story. You go to Star Wars to get that rush of enthusiasm, that excitement, that connection to when you've seen these movies in the past, to feeling like a kid again, and then like that sense of adventure where you're gonna walk out and buy a lightsaber and be like, I can't wait to buy a lightsaber toy for me and my kids so we could play lightsaber fights in the backyard. And I'm like, oh, this time I'm Kylo Ren and you be Rey, that kind of thing. Or Darth Vader, Obi-Wan, whatever film you're referencing. And that's what these movies are about. They're mythological tales that are meant to be taken from one generation and passed down to the next. So it makes sense that each trilogy of films would focus on that next generation and create a new story for a new generation of characters and audience members to be inspired by.
Right, and I think that we're definitely also in a time of films that are doing getting new generations. I'm glad you mentioned that.
That's a good point. I mean, look at Creed, which is basically bringing back Sylvester Stallone as Rocky and introducing, all right, this other new character was the child of this other character that Rocky was close to. So now he's the mentor figure. He's the Harrison Ford, of the Force in the Force Awakens.
Well, there's that, and then there's also going back in time where you have X-Men Apocalypse, or really starting with X-Men Days of Future Past,
right,
where it's the older generation that's now coming in as a new generation of X-Men.
Right.
So we're going to be seeing X-Men Apocalypse, X-Men in the 80s. So now the characters that we've known in modern time, they will be disappearing pretty much probably for good. And so there's that too, just in reverse. And I'm sure there are other movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
But I mean, there's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is for technically a new generation of the same turtles.
No, but that's a straight up reboot. I mean, there's a difference between like taking a franchise and like I don't know who coined this. I wish I could I made a mental note of that. But the legacy sequel, where it's like it's a sequel, but it's marking a new era of that story within that same universe as the previous stories. Because, I mean, nobody wants to see a remake, like a straight-up remake of the original Star Wars. They can remake elements of it and bring the original characters back and introduce new ones to sort of like a passing of the torch film. And
that's lightsaber.
And that too. Well, I mean, and this was literally a passing of the lightsaber, actually. I mean, and that's essentially what this film is.
Well, then there's also films that, like Independence Day 2. That's not a reboot. That is a sequel that's going to have it's going to have the old generation and a new generation. Right. So there's probably going to be a new president who might be the son of the old president.
I think it's Celia Ward. I think she's playing the president. I think she's in the trailer. That's what I've read.
Oh, she's the first one? I forgot.
No, we're not. Well, so we'll have a lady president in Mission Impossible. I'm thinking something else. I've just bought Mission Impossible Rogue Nation on Blu-ray, so I'm like, Mission Impossible, we need to pop that in. So yeah, I think that's interesting too, because they're bringing back some of those original characters, the older ones, but then also like there's new actors playing Bill Pullman's daughter and Will Smith's son. So they'll probably be the main characters in that franchise.
It's too bad it's not going to be his daughter from the actual movie, because at this point,
Mae Whitman?
Yeah.
It should have just been Mae Whitman.
That was so cool because she
still
was
in
the same.
stuff.
You know, she was.
I know
that
that
movie was only
annoys me.
20 years ago. You know, and she was probably only about 8 years old. She could have been in the Independence Day, but maybe she didn't want to be in it. Too.
Yeah, maybe they didn't ask her because they were like, we need somebody different. And I'm like, well, that's kind of shitty to do, but okay. Now we're talking about Independence Day,
right?
but no, I mean the goal for J.J. Abrams in this film was to honor the original trilogy and give it a fresh start, and I feel like he did exactly that. Like I'm super excited, like to the point that I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm more excited to see what the future has in store for Rey. Like, fuck Luke Skywalker, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm excited to see what happens with him. But I'm really like, this girl has the actress and the character have just like are just so compelling to watch every step of the way. All the moments where, and I loved all the moments that the movie went out of its way to be like, yes, she's not a damsel in distress. When Finn's like grabbing her hand and running with her, and she's like, stop grabbing my hand. I know how to run without holding your hand. That kind of thing. Or like where she's being like jumped by some people in the market or whatever because she's trying to protect BB-8 from getting stolen. And Finn's like, shit, I need to go help that girl. And he's like, gets up and about to run over there. And then she kicks everybody's ass. He's like, all right, never mind. Okay. Yeah. All that was great. That they established that she is self-sufficient. She doesn't need somebody to save her. And, you know, she's the one that does the saving. And I thought that was wonderful especially for a franchise that has been woefully underwhelmed as far as its female and minority presence throughout. I mean, it's just basically white guys in all the Star Wars movies in every role.
What about that quote that Kathleen Kennedy just said recently?
Which one?
Was that Kathleen Kennedy with the Neo and?
No, that was I think that was Joanna Robinson, who is a film critic and entertainment journalist. Just saying how people are being sexist about Rey. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think she was great, and I'm really excited to see more of her. So, what are your, I guess, closing thoughts on this film? Like, I did a lot of closing thoughts. So, what are your closing thoughts on this film? And, what do you... I'm gonna make you come and see the next one with me. Probably even Rogue One, but at least episode 8. What are your thoughts, and what do you want to see happen next? I want to know the story. You want answers to your question.
I want to answer my question. I want to know who is Rey related to? Which Skywalker? I know she's a Skywalker. You can't deceive me.
I mean, it could be. I mean, it would be slightly more dramatic if it was brother and sister fighting. But I mean, cousins fighting still gets the same point across.
Right. Maybe after Kylo Ren went all bad, like, oh man, I don't want to. Han and Leia are like, oh man, I don't have another kid. The other one might turn out bad too.
Well, in the extended universe, they had 3 kids. One of them, the oldest one was a boy, went to the dark side. The younger one was a girl, and she became a Jedi. And then the third one, died tragically as a little boy or something. I don't know the circumstances because I haven't read a lot of those novels.
But it's possible they're not doing things from the comic book.
No, they're not. I mean, these are novels, not comic books. But, but I mean, I'm sure they had comic books with those characters too. I know they're not. But that doesn't mean that they can't draw inspiration from that. I mean, right. Captain America Civil War is coming out next year. Is that exactly like the Civil War comic book? No, but are they going to take elements of it? Yeah, of course. That's
why break the grain?
Why fix what's not broken?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to adapt it 100%, but you can take. I mean, you don't think that they borrowed the idea of, okay, Han and Leia have a kid who becomes a Jedi, who becomes turns to the dark side. You don't think they borrowed that from the...
oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. So they're taking bits and pieces of it and kind of doing their own version of it, which I think is great, because if they acknowledge all of that as canon, they don't have any stories to tell.
Right.
Everything's been covered. We know what happens to all of them way into the future. And there's no surprises. Then we won't have these questions. We'll be like, I know, it's in this book. I don't need to know. You know what I mean? Right. And they don't get to build the story as they go along. I'm sure novels and stuff will come out between now and episode 8, filling in some of these gaps and little hints about certain things. But that'll be up to them to divulge in their own time, Lucasfilm, I'm saying, to build towards that other film, not just having it already in the world randomly and just be like, all right, well, let's write a script based on this,
Right, exactly. Well, I hope that in the next film, episode 8, I hope that Finn and Rey get together. I think that they'd be really cute love story, and
I think it's good. I didn't interrupt.
I think it'd be nice to have them come together, and clearly he's he's a hero type, he's a leader, and she's a leader too. And it's basically like Han and Leia all over again, but just in, a different way.
I'm glad that they didn't do that in this movie, though, because I hate movies that force, like, a love story, and they're like, oh, they just met, but now they're in love. I'm like, And the original trilogy also did a good job with that, where they're Han and Leia had chemistry in A New Hope, and you could tell that he was sort of attracted to her. It was like, great girl! I don't know if I want to, what does he say?
Kiss her or shoot her?
Kiss her or something, yeah, something like that. And clearly Luke was already into her, not knowing it's his sister.
Weren't you wondering where I was or what I'm doing? She's like, no.
Yeah. All of that stuff. And they built towards that, where in Empire Strikes Back, it was sometime later story-wise, and that chemistry just felt more natural. Like, okay, these two are way more familiar with each other than they were in the first movie, but still nothing's happened. So you still got to see that moment where they realize that they have feelings for each other, and it is a mutual thing. And then you get that great, I love you. I know that thing,
right?
Which is amazing.
Okay, what about the prequels? That was a little forced.
Well, it was forced because we knew that these two had to have sex and have kids, because otherwise we don't have.
Yeah, and I still don't understand what she saw in him.
Yeah,
I don't see how I don't see how they got together.
George Lucas did not do a very good job with that. I mean, granted, I don't love the prequels. Okay, I do love the prequels, but I don't think they're great movies, except for maybe Revenge of the Sith. I might defend. But there are a lot of things in all three of them to like. There are a lot of the visuals sometimes are really strong. The battle scenes are extremely well choreographed. There are actually funny moments or strong performances, that kind of thing. But that whole love story with the two of them, which is so key to this plot of that trilogy, leading to the tragic end for, I guess, both of them, was so heavy-handed and horribly written. I mean, I wish that I could just wish away my feelings. What the fuck? Who talks like that?
He does.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. He just was whiny. And I'm just like, what does she see in him? I would even ask this when we're watching the film, like, what does she see in him?
And then I had to sit next to him and, like, put my hands in the air and be like, I don't know.
But the thing is, you're talking about visually beautiful. I mean, that
part of it, some of it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of it was CGI. And that's a great thing about this movie was that it wasn't really CGI at all. And the places that they went to, the planets, looked like places you would actually see on planet Earth. It was really... I mean, I get it. I get that the prequels, took you to a far away land.
But they look like video games. You even said it, and many people have said it. That's one of the biggest criticisms around it. Besides the shitty writing of the romance in the prequels, the fact that everything is so CG to the point that you're like, it just looks like two people standing and playing a virtual reality game. No, I don't understand.
Right.
And it was so over the top, where they're swinging on the freaking like ropes while they're hitting lightsabers with lava everywhere. It's like, can't you just make it about this? Like, look at the effectiveness of that lightsaber battle versus the passion in the Rey versus Kylo Ren thing. That was like edge of your seat shit right there. And it was just two people with lightsabers, one of which who had like, I don't know how to use this, but I guess it's like this, fighting in the snow. It was two people fighting. It was a personal conflict, not. I mean, so was the Obi-Wan Anakin thing, but it was just like them, like they were dancing instead of like fighting. They didn't seem like they were mad at each other. They just seemed like they're like doing some kind of weird Cirque du Soleil routine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I'm glad that the movies have balanced CG with practical effects. And some people have said that Supreme Leader Snoke and Maz Kanata did kind of stick out like a sore thumb a little bit because those were the motion capture characters. I did sort of feel that a little bit too. Maz Kanata's especially because. I mean, you see her walking around where there's actors, there's puppets, there's a lot of makeup and different effects happening in that scene in her sequences, and she did look very cartoony comparatively.
Right.
But I was still really interested in her character, and I hope that Lupita Nyong'o comes back because I didn't think she was interesting, and I want to know more about where she comes from. And the fact that we now have a character other than Yoda who's been around forever, and she's like, yeah, I've seen this shit before. Sith, Empire, First Order, it's all the same bullshit.
Right.
And she's like us, and she's like, yeah, this is all cyclical. I've seen it several times, because we're all like, yeah, so have we. We watched the other stuff.
Right, exactly. We haven't even been alive 1,000 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But also with the motion capture, that's also very different than the prequels. So we were even talking about that earlier, that motion capture was not being used as much in back in the early 2000s.
Jar Jar Binks was not motion capture. Jar Jar Binks was
CGI.
Ahmed Best, the actor who did the voice, he had like a Jar Jar like hat on or something because Jar Jar's taller than a normal man. He's supposed to be like more like 6-7 feet tall. And then he was in the scene walking around with them doing the voices. But he didn't have the little sensors on his face. They didn't use anything to capture his performance. That was all the animators. Which is why Jar Jar Binks looks like one of those zombie Polar Express kids most of the time. He's like, Misa called Jar Jar Binks.
Right.
He's like your humble servant.
Yeah, kind of so even though they did use CGI in this one, it seems like it was more motion capture based, which is, a technology that's being more widespread. And also, in the original films, they didn't have CGI at all. It really was just practical effects and miniatures.
So a little bit of stop motion, but
but they had to make it feel similar to that.
Yeah, and they did a great job with that. Do we think a couple more questions? Then we'll wrap it up because we're reaching an hour. Do we think any other original trilogy cast members or anybody else from the previous 6 films? Do you think we're going to see any other familiar faces other than I guess now Luke and Leia?
Luke and Leia, Rey.
No, not from this movie. From the original 6 films. Do you think we're going to have anybody else show up? Because remember, some people can become one with the Force. I don't
know who's going to show up. Emperor Palpatine's dead. Darth Vader, I thought was dead.
Yeah, I hope they don't bring either one of those two back. I think Vader's presence is felt enough, as is, that we don't need him to like show up and be like. We don't need Hayden Christensen to pop up and be like, "Hey, dude."
Plus, he was redeemed.
Yeah, or him to show up and be like, "Hey, it's cool. I'm good now." Which that's going to be, and we talked about that a little bit in the last podcast. That's going to be a nice big twist because there's going to be a moment in either episode 8 or episode 9 where Luke or Rey, somebody tells Kylo Ren, it's like, listen, this guy that you've been following, he actually went towards the light when all was said and done, and he helped destroy the Emperor. So you're trying to finish what he started. He decided he didn't want to do that in the first place. So now you're going based off false information.
Right.
Which is an interesting thing because us as the audience, we know what was going on in Darth Vader's head more now because we saw Return of the Jedi, and Kylo Ren is living off of this legend of like the Dark Lord of the Sith and all powerful, and I need to live up to my grandfather and all that crap. And that's an interesting place to be. I have heard a lot of rumors that Lando might come back, and I think now that Han Solo is dead, I think that will be a good opportunity for him to be like to maybe come to help Leia out, become part of the Resistance, or at least give his feedback on grieving from his friend's death. That kind of thing. And if Finn happens to be connected to him, then there you go. You got that. That'll tie in nicely. Actually, I read about this last night. During that scene where she has her vision, you can hear a voice going, "Rey, these are your first steps," or something. And that was actually a snippet of Alec Guinness's voice as Obi-Wan. And then they actually had Ewan McGregor record a line of dialogue.
Oh, wow. So he might...
To play Obi-Wan. And there have been rumors...
Because if he's a Force ghost...
apparently
if
Hayden Christensen can be the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi, why can't Obi-Wan take his younger form? I mean, we don't have Alec Guinness with us anymore, and Ewan McGregor was one of those strong performances in the prequels that I think elevated that material ridiculously, especially in Episode 3. So it would be interesting to see Ewan McGregor show up either as a Force Ghost or in a flashback or a vision or something. There's also been rumors that at some point they could do an Obi-Wan standalone movie as one of the in-between episodes. And I would love to see that. I thought he was great. And we have 20 years of unexplored terrain where he drops Luke off with Owen and Beru and then goes hide in the desert and then shows up again. We don't know. He could have left Tatooine, gone on some other mission, kicked some ass, and be like, all right, back to my post.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a lot of it.
What about Yoda? Can Yoda come back as a Force Ghost?
I think so. Frank Oz is still around. He could record the voice. And a little bit of Yoda's dialogue, I guess, was played in that scene too. That happened a lot really fast. And seeing it on the big IMAX, I think I was sensory overload a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they cut back and forth. Among that vision was that scene of Luke's hand on R2 and all of that. There was a lot going on. So when I rewatch it now, I won't have to. I can really focus in on enjoying, taking in John Williams' score, as well as little details like the Daniel Craig cameo and some of the other character reprisals there. So overall, very excited. Definitely going to be in my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Can't wait for more. I'm sure I'll be talking about Star Wars Rogue One and Episode 8 on the podcast going forward as more news comes out. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys thought about Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Send me a tweet at Crooked Table.
And you can send me a tweet too at the Volky LLC. And I usually actually tweet at Crooked Table's stuff on Twitter as well. So you'll see that.
Go. Read our articles at crookedtable.com. Like us on Facebook. I'm not sure when we're going to do the next episode of this. The Hateful Eight does come out in actually less than a week now. So I'm definitely going to see that. So hopefully I can either wrangle Kai or Freddie in here, or I could just do a solo show, like a solo. It's a little bit of Star Wars humor. A solo show, but I'm going to try and get something up every week to 10 days. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I need to get a little more regularity with these episodes because I have a blast doing them, and it's fun to get the conversation started with you guys. So I guess that's it for this episode of the Crooked Table. If you haven't listened to our part 1 of our Star Wars episode, please go ahead and download that off of iTunes. And please, if you enjoy what you're hearing, give us some reviews. So in the meantime, may the Force be with you, and we'll see you guys soon. If you're interested in joining me on the show to chat about one of your favorite films, head on over to crookedtable.com/guest. Or you can consider supporting the show at patreon.com/crookedtable. Of course, you can always find more podcasts, reviews, videos, and other movie-related goodies over at crookedtable.com. Until next time, this has been the Crooked Table Podcast, and I've been Rob.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.